Organic modeling in Blender is not as complex as you think. Even some detailed-looking models are made with very simple shapes. What really matters is how you control and optimize your geometry. In this video, I'll show you how to create organic-looking models in a simple and effective way by creating this entire mushroom composition in Blender. We're going to apply the concept of modeling with subdivisions, which is to add more geometry to our models using a modifier, smoothing its surface to achieve more organic and natural shapes. Making objects with marked edges and little geometry achieve a much more defined finish. So, let's get started. Well, let's come to Blender. You can download the latest version for free from the official website. However, don't worry too much about the version, because no matter what version it is, these basics are always the same. So let's come here to the scene. I'm going to select everything with the A key and delete it with the X key. All the shortcuts that I'm going to say, you're going to see in this part below. If you have any doubts about which key I used, you can check it out below. So let's start by making the mushroom stem. To do that, we're going to make a circle. I'm going to press Shift-A and add a circle. If we check in the bottom left panel, we have the characteristics of this circle that we just created. At this moment, it has 32 vertices, but as we are going to be working with subdivisions, the idea will be to work with a smaller amount of vertices to be able to have more control over the geometry. I'm going to reduce this amount by half. I'm going to put 16 vertices and hit Enter. And this is what we are left with. I'm going to enter edit mode with the Tab key, and I'm going to extrude it with the E key and press Z to lock the Z axis and move it vertically only. I'm going to leave it over here, and to scale it, I'm going to press the S key. Then, I'm going to add a few loops along the cylinder. With Ctrl+R, I'm going to create new loops and position them to modify the silhouette we want to achieve. The bottom one, I also scale it with the S key. Then I create a new one with Ctrl+R, and I scale it again with the S key. In this way, we are generating the form that we want to achieve. We are going to create the loops that are necessary to obtain the form that we want. Now, with this initial form, we are going to add the subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to come to the modifier tool icon, and with the cursor in this area, I press Shift+A and look for the subdivision surface modifier. We can put 2 levels of subdivision, and as you can see here, our geometry is already much smoother. So let's continue adjusting a little bit. I'm going to select this loop, and I'm going to scale it a little bit more. I can also activate the arrows of the Move tool here to do it directly from the selection. I scale it a little bit, and for example, for this loop in the center, which is not visible, I have to activate this icon here in the modifier to be able to see the vertices after having applied the modifier. Then here, I can continue to adjust this silhouette. In the lower part, I will select the whole loop, and I will extrude it with the E key, press Escape, and then I will scale it so that I have a more close shape. With this, we have the stem of our mushroom. Now, for the hat, we are going to come up here. We are going to take all this loop, and we are going to duplicate it to generate the new circle. I'm going to press Shift+D, hit Escape, then press the E key to extrude, press Escape again, and with S, I'm going to scale it. In this way, we create this shape. Now, I'm going to extrude it again, press the Z key to lock it on the Z axis, and in this way, we are giving it volume. I'm going to extrude it once more. I scale it with S, and we adjust the position. As you can see, we are gradually achieving the shape of this mushroom. Well, now at the top, to close it, what we are going to do is activate Auto Merge Vertex. I'm going to extrude it, I'm going to scale it with S, and press 0 to scale everything at point 0 and confirm with click. And since we have this option activated, all the vertices that are in the same position will be collapsed. In this way, we already have our mushroom closed. I'm going to select this loop, and with double G, I'm going to move it a little bit this way to make it a little bit rounder, and that's it. This way, we already have the main silhouette of our mushroom. And now, with this shape, we're going to finish polishing it a little bit. For example, I think we can make it a little more elongated here above. I select this whole part with L and press S and Z to scale it on the Z axis, and the stem, I want to make it thicker. I select it with L and press Alt plus S to scale it in the direction of the normals, and this way everything is a little bit thicker. That's it. So that would be the initial mushroom, and now what we're going to do is to make some variations of this same mushroom. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to press Shift plus D to duplicate it, and I'm going to move it and scale it a little bit. To reposition it, here I can press the R key, or I can press double R to rotate it freely, and I'm going to put some variations of this same mushroom around here. I can scale, rotate, and move it to generate this little composition. Ideally, they should all be slightly different sizes to make it feel natural. In edit mode, I can still make some adjustments if we feel we can improve the shape. Okay, something like that. Another thing that also helps us a lot to make organic objects look good is to work them not only in edit mode with vertex modeling, but also in sculpt mode. So first of all, I select all my objects and press Ctrl plus A and apply the scale, because as we modified the size, the scale was irregular. And now I'm going to enter sculpt mode from this panel, and with the G key, which is the move tool, I'm going to make some small modifications to the mushrooms to make them look a little bit irregular. With Alt plus Q, I can move to other objects and also modify them without leaving sculpt mode. With Alt plus Q, we go to the other object we want to modify, and we make small modifications to them since this type of beings in nature are usually quite irregular. So here, the irregularity will help us a lot to make this feel natural. Well, then it's a matter of playing a little bit with the shape, looking for the most dynamic look possible. Keep rotating your model and refining it from all angles to achieve an appealing result. We're aiming for models that feel alive, with strong visual interest and good balance rather than rigid shapes. So with these small variations in sculpt mode, we can achieve it. Ready. So there, as you can see, it looks a little bit more dynamic, this composition, where we already have some variations of the same mushroom. I'm going to make one last little adjustment here, and now that we have this, let's continue making some leaves at the base of our composition. To do that, we're going to create a plane with Shift plus A. I'm going to press Shift plus H to hide everything else. Everything is hidden at this point, and in the side view, with the 3 key and in edit mode, I'm going to press RX90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the X-axis. And I'm going to scale it on the Z-axis, pressing S and Z. I'm going to create a couple of loops here with Ctrl plus R and with the mouse wheel. And I'll scale the top ones like this, and likewise the bottom one, trying to create a silhouette like a little leaf. I'm going to go to the side view with 3 and with 5 in orthographic mode, and I'm going to select these loops, and I'm going to push them a little bit to the front on the Y-axis, so that I get a slightly curved leaf. We can make it a little bit more exaggerated. We're going to push them a little bit more, like this. That's it. We are going to add the subdivision modifier, and we are going to add another modifier called the solidify modifier. Press Shift plus A and type solidify, and here we have it. I'm going to increase the thickness, and with that, we have some thickness on our leaf. Once again, I'm going to add another subdivision modifier, and I'm going to put 2 levels of subdivision. And this would be the result. So this little leaf right now is simply a matter of placing it around the composition of our mushrooms. I'm going to press Alt plus H to bring it all back up, and I'm going to position it at the base of the stems. An important point here is that since the point of origin, this orange dot, is all the way across the middle of the leaf, it's going to be more difficult to do the transformations. So back in edit mode, I select everything with A, and I move it up so that the origin point is right at the base of the leaf. This way, when I rotate it, it will always rotate from the base, and so it's going to be easier to transform. So now I'm just going to place it at the base of my mushrooms. I'm going to scale it up a little bit, and I'm going to duplicate it, making little variations. Here, when we scaled it, we lost a little bit of the solidify thickness, so I press Ctrl plus A and apply the scale to recover it in both leaves. And I'm going to position them around the mushrooms and make it look like they all come out of the same point, and so we get a much more interesting composition. Okay, something more or less like that. It's up to you how many leaves you want to put. You have to try to have a good amount, but it shouldn't look too saturated either. So it can be something more or less like this. We can also go into sculpture mode and modify them a little bit between them so that they have a little more variation and likewise a little more visual interest. Okay, so here we have a couple of little leaves. And now that we have all the objects in our scene, we're going to continue adding a camera and working on the lighting. So the first thing to keep in mind before we start with the lighting is that for the objects to have consistent lighting, ideally, they should have a similar scale to reality. So for example, in this case, if we select this main mushroom, it says it's 11.2 meters tall, which is a gigantic scale compared to reality. So what we're going to do is select everything and scale it so that it gets to dimensions more similar to reality. I select everything and scale it with S until it's much smaller. I'm going to leave it about here. Here, it's measuring 28 centimeters, which is a much more realistic scale. So with this, the lighting result is going to be much better. I'm going to center it nicely, and when I have such a small scale, the camera also gets a little bit fickle, so I have to readjust it again. That's it, and now I can move it easily. And now we're going to create a plane on the base. I'm going to put it centered here. I'm actually going to press Alt-G so that it's completely centered. I'm going to press Shift-S, and I'm going to put the cursor in the center of the world, because at some point I accidentally moved it. And with this plane, we can see if we have any problems on the surface of our objects. In this case, they are all well adjusted on the surface. But if we had some over here, for example, or two tucked in, then the idea would be to adjust them manually so that they are well integrated with the floor. Now let's add the camera. I press Shift-A. We are going to look for the camera here, and we add it. It comes out super big, so I'm going to scale it a little bit. I'm going to move it over here. And when I'm working on rendering, I like to display two other windows on this side. So I'm going to come over to the little corner where I get the cross, and I'm going to create a new window. I come back over here to the corner, and I create another one. Then, in the top left corner, I like to have the 3D view, but with the camera angle. Then, I press the N and T key to hide the side panels. I also like to hide the gizmo in the overlays so that this is completely clean for me, and I press the 0 key for the camera view. So here we are in what the camera sees. And for this window here, I like to put in the shader editor, which is where we create and adjust our materials. I'm going to make this here a little bit smaller. I'm going to zoom the camera in, and if we activate up here, render mode, we're going to be able to see what the camera is seeing in this mode. This is the preview of our render. For this occasion, we are going to use the Cycles rendering engine. I'm going to come to the camera, and if you have Eevee, as in this case, we're going to switch it to Cycles, which is a little bit slower, but much more powerful. I can adjust the camera a little bit more to frame it right, and that's the lighting that we have by default. If we come over here to the shader editor, and this part where it says Object, there's a tab that says World, and in the world we have the material of the whole background of my scene. In this case, we are using a gray background. That is to say that the whole scene is being illuminated by this color in a completely uniform way. But we want to make a lighting much more elaborate, so I'm going to reduce the color to this, almost to a minimum. I like to have it at a very, very low tone with which I can perceive a little bit of the silhouette. Ready then, that's the first step. I'm going to turn solid mode back on, and we're going to adjust the camera properly. Then, I'm going to press the N key here, and where it says View, I'm going to select this option that says Camera to View. In this way, the modifications that I make in this 3D view, they will adjust the position of the camera, and so I can adjust it very easily. I'm going to move it a little bit until I find an angle that I like. For example, this way. I think it's a good position. We can also select a camera, adjust its properties, mainly the focal length. It seems to me that it is very low. It means that there will be more perspective distortion. If I reduce it, look how it increases the perspective deformation, and if I increase it, there's going to be less deformation, more like the orthogonal view. I'm going to leave it at 90, which I've always found to be a good default value. So there's a little bit of perspective, but not too much, and I'm going to adjust it, looking for a good angle. We can also make some adjustments in sculpture mode to make the composition look better. So here we have a good angle, and when we are sure of the framing, again, with the N key, disable camera to view so we can zoom in. And now we are going to illuminate. I'm going to turn the render mode back on, and we are going to start adding a few lights. To add the lights, I'm going to press Shift plus A, and I'm going to create an area light. I create an area light, and I place it pointing directly at my mushrooms. For this lighting, we're going to use a very popular method, which is called three-point lighting. It consists of lighting using 3 lights. A main light that is illuminating most of the scene, trying to highlight everything. A contour light that hits laterally, trying to highlight the silhouette. And a third light, which is a fill light, which is to finish illuminating the areas that are a little cloudy. Well then, let's adjust here the characteristics of this light. If we select here in this tab, here we have the intensity. We can decrease it or increase it. We have the size and we have the shape. First of all, for the shape I like to use disks, which are circles, because I find that they work better for soft objects like these. I would also like to reduce the size a little bit, so that the shadows are a little harder. The smaller the size, the sharper the shadows are. If I make it very small, the shadows are very hard. If I make it big enough, the shadows will be softer. So I'm going to look for a size more or less like this, somewhere in between, and this would be my main light. I don't want it to hit directly from the same angle as the camera, so I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Here's a little trick that I think is also good for the lighting. It is to select here in the pivot point the 3D cursor, and we make sure with Shift plus S that the cursor is in the center of the world. Then, when I rotate the camera, it will always rotate illuminating our scene. if we press double R as well, then I'm going to rotate it a little bit, trying to find a point where the volumes stand out well. It's a little bit sideways. And with our main light created, we're going to adjust the background a little bit better as well. Here's a technique. So that the whole background looks uniform, we are going to take this back edge of this plane and extrude it on the Z-axis, like this. And then I'm going to rotate it so that it's aligned with the camera. In the camera, I can see this edge here, this same angle, and now selecting this border, I'm going to press Ctrl plus V to create a bevel, and with the mouse wheel, I'm going to increase several sections. You can still see a little bit of these polygons. Same back here. So I press W shade smooth so that it is completely smoothed. In fact, let's do the same with the mushrooms. Select everything and press W shade smooth, and now they are completely smooth. And then it's just a matter of adjusting a little bit the size, the intensity, and the angle for this main light. It might be something like this. I'm going to duplicate it to generate a second light. That second light is going to be my contour light, so I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to hide the main one temporarily to see how it works. Something like this. I'm going to reduce the size a little bit, and I'm going to give it a slight shade of another color. Let's try, for example, with blue. I'll duplicate the light once more. I will rotate it and hide the last one. And this is going to be my fill light. So this one, I want it to be a little bit bigger, and so that it has an interesting color contrast, I'm going to give it a slightly orange tone. Let's unhide everything, and this is how my image looks like. You can play with the size, the intensity, and the position to achieve different results. Learning to create good lighting could take some time. It is not something that is so easily learned. With subtle changes, you can achieve very different results, so you have to develop an eye for it. Don't rush to get it perfect. Keep in mind that it's a gradual process. Okay, I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to move my camera a little bit. I'm going to move it up a little bit on the Z-axis. And finally, we're going to put the materials in our scene. I'm going to select the background. In the shader editor, I'm going to go back to the object shader, and we're going to create a new material by clicking here on this new button. And to this, I'm going to put a tone that can be like cream. Something very clear, more or less like this. For the leaves, I'm going to put a new material on them, which is going to be a more intense green. Here, I can get closer to see the color. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker and more saturated. Okay, I'm going to select all the leaves with Shift. And finally, I select the one with the material, which is this one here, and we press Ctrl plus L, and I give Link Materials. And there you can see that all the leaves now have the same color. I'm going to adjust the tone again a little bit and make it clearer. Perfect. And now the mushroom material. I'm going to create a new material for it, and I'm going to make it redder. This mushroom is going to have two materials. The first one is red for the hat. I'm going to make it a little bit more saturated like this. And to create a new material on the same object, I'm going to come to the Materials tab. I'm going to create a new material slot here. We press New, and this is going to be our second color. I will select cream, but a little bit darker. And to assign it, we enter Edit Mode, and with the L key, we select the stem, and we press Assign. And in this way, we manage to change the color. I'm going to do the same with all the other mushrooms. I will select the three, then select the first one, and I press Ctrl L, Link Materials. And again, with all of them selected, in Edit Mode, I select the stems with L, and we assign the stem material. Then here, we can continue making some color adjustments to this material. On the other one too, I'm going to reduce the roughness a little bit to make it a little bit brighter, more reflective. I'm going to keep playing with the colors a little bit until I feel comfortable with the result. To the stem as well, I'm going to make some small adjustments. And I'm also going to work a little more on the lighting. This is a constant process, trial and error. Here, I feel that the roughness of the red color is a little exaggerated. And basically, this would be our final result. And the last thing is small, minor adjustments, like the position of the camera. This color of the base here, I also want to make it a little lighter. And that's it, folks. So with this, we have our whole scene ready. We can play a little bit too with the position of the base. That will also alter the perception a little bit. If we move it a little bit closer to the camera, the background looks more uniform, and if we move it a little bit further away, it looks a little bit darker. So I'm going to move it a little bit closer. And let's see now, finally, the render properties. First, it's important that you have GPU compute selected, so that you use your graphics card for rendering. If I press Ctrl+, for the preferences here in System, we can select our graphic card. In this case, I am using the CUDA method with my NVIDIA card, so I have to have it selected. And for the render properties, here we have the sampling, which is the amount of passes that is done to this image. The more we have, the better quality, but this amount is a little exaggerated. We can put it, for example, in 50, and I will also increase a little bit the noise threshold. By default, Blender uses a denoise that, by means of artificial intelligence, identifies the geometry and the lighting to clean up the final result, and that is much more polished. That way, we won't need so many passes. So, as it is, I can press F12, and it's going to process my render. And here we have it, folks. This is our final render. If I want to save the image, I can press Alt+S. We look for the folder where we want to save it and hit save. And with this, my friends, we arrive to the end of this tutorial. Take your time to explore the various options and possibilities that we have with the tools that we have seen of Blender. And if you want to learn Blender in depth, I invite you to check my Blender course for beginners. You have the link in the description. I will also be uploading much more content to the channel, so I invite you to subscribe if you want to stay in the loop. I hope you guys have a lot of fun modeling, and I'll see you in the next video.